Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EVN Disrupt podcast. My name is Narek Vardanyan. I'm the editor of the Creative Tech section here at EVN Report. This is our first podcast of 2023. Happy New Year. I want to thank you all for tuning in to our podcast last year. This year, we'll continue to bring you episodes with founders, investors, and other members of the Armenian startup ecosystem and tech sector. My guest today was Narek Vardanyan. Narek is the co-founder of the Crowdfunding Formula and the co-founder and CEO of PreLaunch.com, a platform for evaluating startup ideas. We spoke about what metrics their platform uses to determine the likelihood of success of the product. Narek also shared with us his advice on what founders should consider before picking a startup idea. Thank you for listening. Narek, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with a little bit of your background. I know you have quite a career in product and startups in general. How did you get started in this space?
So we've started with the agency, with the crowdfunding formula. Actually, we started from a failure. We failed and then wrote a book. It became very popular, and then we started to do some consulting.
What was the failure?
The failure was an application that me and my friend wanted to get funding for. And then we put that to crowdfunding platforms, then realized that, it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Until we figured out that, applications are not for crowdfunding. We failed miserably.
Right.
But we wrote a book about success. And the book succeeded.
Specifically about crowdfunding success?
Yes. So we did some interviews on how people succeed there and wrote a book about other success. So it became successful, and then this is how we ended there. Mm-hmm. And we started as a consulting agency. Then we started to do some management, and then while we were managing the campaigns, we quickly became popular, and we started to receive many products, which we needed to evaluate on which products have bigger potential, which ones don't have that much potential. And then this is how PreLaunch came on, because we failed at that point to evaluate correctly on the highest potential products, and we tried everything and nothing really worked, so we needed a way on.
Were you guys evaluating the ideas as to whether or not they would be successful for a specific crowdfunding campaign?
Not for crowdfunding campaign. This is how we started, but now it became something bigger and broader. So at first that was our goal. So mm-hmm. we need a way to figure out an unbiased validation technique.
Right.
And we found out that this is the reservation, where people put down some $1 or $2 that gives the highest credibility. And then we broadened it up into PreLaunch, which is today, which is much broader than crowdfunding.
Right. And it's separate from the crowdfunding.
It's separate, yeah. Yes.
So tell us about PreLaunch. Describe the product for us. What is it that you guys do?
PreLaunch is a product validation platform which helps consumer hardware brands, understand whether their creative concepts have potential in the markets or not. And what they do, they create these simple pages, describe their products, and see if people are ready to put down $1 or $2 to get a significant discount when this product releases into the markets.
Like a landing page.
Like a landing page, yes. And then we, with our proprietary analytics and dashboards and benchmarks, they can clearly see what is not working mm-hmm. for them, like what metrics are good, what metrics are bad, what they need to improve. Yeah. And this is how they figure out if they need to continue working on that product, stop it, or maybe do something else.
At what point do they come to you? Do they need to have an MVP or something ready to go? Or?
Yes, they need to have an early concept, as we say, a prototype, so a bit earlier than a prototype. Right. So it needs to be something in between an idea and a prototype, but needs to be viable enough or descriptive enough so people understand what is the product. It should have design, should have shape.
But it's not necessarily through that page. They're not necessarily going to have users actually be using the product. They're just trying to see if there's enough interest.
Yes. So the users know that this product doesn't exist,
right.
And this is one of the transparent validation techniques that we use, because mm-hmm. typically it's done in a fake way. So they would put it on the website, and you would go assuming that's a product, and then you would figure out that the product doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So on PreLaunch, you know that the product doesn't exist, and you know that if you put down your small amount of money, you don't risk anything. So if you change your mind, the PreLaunch will send it to you back, right. refund your amounts. But this way you give very credible signals to creators, so they understand should they move on with their products or not.
Yeah. It kind of, in a way, uses some parts of the crowdfunding model, because with crowdfunding as well, oftentimes the product is not yet in production, hasn't been manufactured maybe. So you're just putting up money in the hopes of it will go to launch.
Yes, exactly. So currently crowdfunding is the best way, I would say. And many enterprise companies, many big brands are using crowdfunding for validation.
Right.
But crowdfunding is not designed for validation. It's designed for fundraising, and sometimes people are making even fun on these brands, and it has a lot of limitations actually.
Right.
So we are kind of taking this idea and separating it from crowdfunding, making it like specifically for validation.
Right. Before it was kind of just a hack on the crowdfunding side.
Exactly.
You guys have productized it. So what are some of the key indicators you guys are monitoring and looking for when you put up the landing page?
That's a very good question, because we tracked about 35 metrics. Sometimes people look at vanity metrics that didn't really matter. And sometimes they'll see who is clicking to their ads and become very happy, and then like put their house as a collateral, take the money and invest everything into the products, which doesn't actually mean that people are going to buy those products. So we track different metrics, like we have the subscription rate, that's for checking the people's interest, the reservation rate, we're checking like whether people are actually ready to buy the product. We have this score which is called PreLaunch score. We have some scientists who are working on this score. It's a kind of combination of all these metrics to not complicate creators a lot. It's kind of condensed into one simple metrics. But the overall idea is that there are so many metrics that you can clearly see what is not working for your product. Like, is it the audience? Is it the positioning? Is it the interest? Is it the price? Is it the color? And then with time, we figured out like what metrics stand for what. And then we use our experience and benchmarks to guide creators so they understand what these metrics mean, right?
What they should be focused on.
Yes. Because if you do it on your own website, if it's really good or it's really bad, you'll know it. But if it's in somewhere in between, and typically it's in 95% of the cases, you don't know what does that mean. Is it good? Are you doing good or you're doing bad? So you need some benchmarks to guide you.
How are the users finding the landing pages? Like, does PreLaunch have both sides of the market? Does it have people that are actively looking to take a look at these startup ideas, or are they coming across them organically online through web searches and things of that nature?
Both. So it has a marketplace where it has a really big already really big community. It's like 4 months old, but we see about a couple of 100,000 visitors a month to the website. So we have a good organic traffic. We have a big newsletter. People finding it organically. But in most of the cases, the community is coming through advertising. So whenever creators are creating these landing pages, they do advertising to test also the audiences, the niche markets, and bring traffic by themselves. And then PreLaunch amplifies those traffic. I would say like it gives 30 to 25% more traffic than you would otherwise get. Yeah.
How long have you guys been up now?
About 5 months.
And can you tell us how many startup ideas have gone through PreLaunch?
We saw about 1,500 registrations already to the platform. About 200 projects are live, so you can go and like see some cool stuff there.
What's the business model? Are the startups that are coming to you guys to help with the validation of the ideas paying like a subscription type model, or is there a different?
Yes, no, that's subscription with a free plan. So for frictionless onboarding, people can just register, use it for free. We have some cool features like AI Builder. They can try it out, see how it works, build their pages, get their first subscribers. Use the insights, and then when they get used to it and get the value of it, they move to subscriptions.
To a subscription model. Yeah. If you're looking at all the metrics that you're monitoring, is there anything you can do with like an 80-20 analysis? Is there 20% of the indicators that provide 80% of the results?
Yes. So there are some more important metrics and some less important metrics.
Can you share them?
And the most important metrics are around this reservation rate. So basically, like the baseline is that where people actually put money, and then you kind of elaborate upon that. that's a really good baseline to drive some insights from. And that's the reservation rate, the cost per reservation, and those are the metrics that clearly indicate whether there's a demand or not out there.
Right. Yeah.
And on top of that, we build out some, more comprehensive data sets.
Yeah. Is there anything you've learned about the validation of startup ideas over these last 5-6 months that has surprised you? Something that you thought didn't matter, but apparently it does, or?
Both in terms of we are always surprised with the products that nobody is betting that they're going to be successful, and then with the pre-launch we see, like they're the opposite of everyone's expectations, and vice versa. We had some really successful brands which had success with their past 6-7 products, and then the next product was not successful, and then nobody was expecting that the next one won't be successful. So it's always surprising. But with the data, we are always trying to find out some new data that make sense. For example, we recently came up with this elasticity rate. We're changing the $1 and increasing it to up to $10 or $50 to see how it will impact the overall metrics. Yeah. So that's also something that's helping.
I think there's another book in the works here. Maybe after a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
How to evaluate startup ideas. Let's talk about what advice you can give to founders in general. Like when a lot of people have business ideas, startup ideas. When they're even just thinking about it, they're not even ready to build out a product, or maybe they're not the person that will build it out. They have to go find a team. What's some advice you give to people from everything you've learned on how to decide if an idea is worth pursuing? Yeah, so
depending on what stage they are, the advice can be different, but most importantly, they need to validate the problem first. So this problem validation is the number one thing that they need to do. And after they are validating the problem with their consumers, and we call it your consumer advisory board. So you kind of get on board some consumers and incentivize them, not monetary, but kind of incentivize them that you're going to solve their problems. So they invest their time into your idea, and you start co-creating with them. That's basically the number one hack that is out there that people should do. So as soon as possible, go to their customers, see how clear and how apparent the problem is out there, and try to co-create with them. Don't try to do it in isolation.
Right.
In software, it's pretty much that's the case. I would say this lean methodology is a religion in software, but especially in hardware, in other industries, in fashion, it's not like that. It's still like in 18th century. Yeah. So people are working in isolation, investing a lot of time, a lot of money, then bringing it to the markets and failing. Yeah. So this is what we want to change. And
Paul Graham has this famous essay from probably more than 15 years ago now, where he talks about don't look for startup ideas, look for problems that you can solve. And take a problem-centric approach as opposed to just some product that you're in love with the idea and you try to bring it to market.
Yes, that's one of the most common biases in Armenia especially, where people have this solution and then try to validate and try to come up with a problem that fits into their solution. Right. But it should be vice versa. Yeah. Yes.
So in terms of going out and just speaking to your potential customers when it's still even at the idea phase, what are some things that you should be asking the potential customers? How do you approach those conversations?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because the right questions will give you very right answers. So one of the questions we ask, by the way, we send out surveys right away when they do reservations. So that's the most ecstatic time where people are ready to tell you everything on why they did that. Yeah. Like 1 hour later, it's not working like that. So you need to immediately get, the insights. And the most interesting answers come from the question of why you reserved this product. And you openly ask them, and you're receiving some insights on why people did that. Somebody wanted to buy it as a present, somebody had this problem, somebody was suffering from something, etc. So first thing we ask is this: why you reserved this product? What was your motivation basically? What kind of similar products you owned before? And most of other questions are around their practical, are their past behavior, rather than their future intentions or ideas.
Yeah.
So what they did, what they looked for, what problems they suffered from,
Yeah.
what kind of limitations they saw in their existing solutions, etc. So around that, we kind of form an understanding on, first of all, who their real customers are, because that's really very important. And people go and collect surveys from people who are not their customers, basically. And then they make important decisions based on that, but the baseline is wrong.
Yeah.
So in here, the baseline is right because people are giving you their money and are ready to also give you their insights, right? So like you also learn like who they are, what they are doing. We're also doing this customer enrichment, so you can see like where they work, what positions they occupy, and then you have this kind of complete picture at early stages.
Yeah, it's interesting. You were saying earlier how it's often a big problem in Armenia where people won't go out and speak to their potential customer base at first or try to gain those insights. I remember the first podcast we did this year with Vardanyan. He said that venture capitalist at SmartGate, he said something really interesting. He said one of the biggest cultural changes that has happened in Armenia in the entrepreneurship scene in the last 5 years is that people learn to, instead of just coding for 12 months and then showing the world what they did, they learn to first go and speak to the market and try to validate their idea a little bit before investing that much time into it.
Yeah. Before, people were not telling their ideas at all
because they were scared that
they were scared that you're gonna steal their idea and you're gonna do it. That's changing. Another thing that is also changing on top of that, and I can see it as a marketeer, people are starting to invest in marketing and sales. So that's also a kind of common bias in Armenia, that they think that the products will work on their own if they have a really good products, but they don't have anybody to work on the marketing and sales side. And that's pretty much typically people who work with the customers and bring the right customers. So we see some positive signals.
As someone with a lot of experience in marketing and sales, what's your take on developing sort of the business side of the startup ecosystem in Armenia? So I mean, oftentimes people speak about how it's challenging to find sales and marketing talent in Armenia, whereas maybe it's easier to find engineering talent, and they often go to places like America and the West for finding that talent. What's being done to really develop and nurture that side of the ecosystem?
So some of the successes of the current startups, I would say, are spreading out, and people are asking what's working for you, what's not working, and then when they see that sales and marketing are one of the critical elements of success, they also start to invest in there. They start to get advisors. They start to assign somebody sales roles. But that's typically one of the biggest challenges of startups, because most of them are technical founders. And not only technical founders, the whole team is technical. So they need someone to take care of that.
Right. Yeah. But do you see maybe in the coming 5 years having more of that sales side and stuff being done in Armenia, or will they still rely on the US?
No, for sure, because that's currently is very demanded, and I assume that the demand and supply will balance each other after some time. But currently, it's one of the hot jobs in Armenia, like sales and marketing in SaaS business, in software. Everybody needs that. All the startups that I know pretty much need a marketing person. So it will create, like, from the demand side, it will like pull out some experts, I hope.
Right. Speaking of teams, what are some ways that founders can validate whether or not the problem that they've picked to focus on is something that they and their co-founders or their early team are fit to tackle? Are there sort of ways to evaluate that?
So before starting, pretty much no. So you can have, like, the first surface evaluation, but everything comes with the experience, comes with the real, when you face real challenges and you see how resilient is the team with the problems. So one thing that helps is to just agree everything from the beginning, because sometimes we see some problems with the co-founders where they split up, where they realize that somebody has some other priorities in a year or in 2 years, etc. So important advice in here would be to just agree from the beginning everything how it goes. Like they can have the founder vesting options, etc. Now it's pretty much organized in Silicon Valley and Western countries. So depending on the areas, you need a different types of mindset. But in startups, it's always difficult. You need to have people who are ready for challenges and take problems as challenges and are sometimes excited with the problems and not vice versa.
What about in terms of expertise? Like, for instance, many SaaS businesses, is going out and just speaking to customers enough in that specific industry? For instance, let's say you're building software for the service industry, but you're not from that world. How important is it to have someone from the service industry on your team, or can all of that be subsidized through just conversations with customers?
Not all. Having somebody in the team is always very helpful. If you don't have that pleasure to have anybody like full-time working in the team, you can form your customer advisory board. So you can have an advisors, and you can find somebody who can advise you on like hourly basis. Right. So we typically advise to have one expert advisory board and then one customer advisory board. So to have like two pools of advisors, one who are experiencing currently the problem and are ready to pay you, and the others who have been there, felt that pain, and have an expertise in there. So that's kind of one of two mandatory things that will give you a lot of expertise.
Even if that person isn't like a founder or something.
Yes.
Yeah. Is team evaluation something that PreLaunch does or could do, or is that out of the scope of?
No, that's more of a for TCF type of a thing, of an agency. That's so with the agency. Thing. Yeah, with the agencies we've been working with, with the founders, with the products. That's where we kind of try to evaluate how long we would go.
Yeah, it's hard to turn personality traits and talent into metrics, right?
Yes.
Moving a little bit away from PreLaunch, I want to ask you about something that you guys started at Crowdfunding Formula a few years ago, which is the conferences that you do every year, the Formula conferences in the regions. So I believe this year was your second one. Last year you did in Gorgis, and this year was in Yeknadzor. So at the time when you did your first one, the first one in Gorgis last year, I was teaching Python and Kapan. And at the time, there was very little like activity in Kapan related to like software engineering or even like remote jobs and stuff. At one point, one of my students approached me and said, you're here teaching us Python, but what exactly are we supposed to do with that? And after that, I moved to Gorgis for a short while. And in Gorgis, the environment this was a few months after your conference. The environment was quite different, and a lot of the young people I would speak to, especially around, there was an AUA opening up there and stuff, they would talk about how they learned about remote working opportunities through the Formula Gorgis conference. And there was even like little groups that were set up to learn like digital marketing and things of that nature. And the vibe was so different from my experience at Kapan. And I realized that, we took for granted that we knew how to do things like finding jobs remotely and working online and things of that nature. And for the first time in Gorgis, that had sort of been presented to the community. And it felt like it had a really tangible effect. What is your primary goal with doing the conferences in the regions, and how do you find a way to make that impact more tangible and long-lasting? Because it's easy for that to sort of slip up after a while, right?
Yeah. So first of all, that's really exciting to hear that that the impact was there. So there are a couple of goals in here. The first one is to inform people about the opportunities that are out there in the world, and the opportunities that they have themselves. And people don't really realize that there are so many opportunities, even in various areas of Armenia, despite their working and living in Yerevan or not, right? So to just inform them about the opportunities, to motivate them, bring some people who have the real life experience, and to show those people to them, so they see that those people are real, kind of, are not from TV, and they're like normal people like themselves. Right. So that's the second goal. The third goal is to form a network and relationships with these people, because we're trying to bring some expertise from Yerevan, from other areas into the regions, and trying to bond some relationships with the local population and experts, so they can stay in touch. And the fourth reason is to is one of the most important ones, I would say, is to entice curiosity around the young population, especially. Because in these conferences you cannot learn much. You just learn kind of the basics of everything, and we try to keep it diverse. And there's so much information, but just a one day, right? So most important thing is this curiosity that will start that sparks after the conference, and they'll start to just go dig deeper, try to get more information about this, about that, etc. And then we also kind of feel this social responsibility as a company, like we're we become successful in this society, and we need to give it back to the society somehow. So we figured out that this birthday celebrations are the best way to kind of give back to the society, and we want to make it a culture in Armenia, and thankfully many other companies are also following up this pattern. And I think if we make it a culture, and all Armenian companies, all the successes, even not companies, even like individuals as well, they have just one day in year where they'll share their knowledge, what they learned, what they do, try to advise some people who are interested into repeating their path. We'll have a really significant impact. So that's the goal.
Do you guys do any follow-up after you've hosted the conference in those cities? For instance, in Goris or in Yeknadzor, is there an opportunity to maybe do like mini talks and stuff in those cities to keep that interest and spark? Or
we do some stuff, but we're thinking of expanding it. So we have these specialized groups of marketing, of I know, some specific PR, etc. So we were holding these Telegram groups, and then we have some experts in there which kind of contribute with the materials, with the learnings, and try to keep the groups active.
Nice. I think that's super important, because it's very easy for that curiosity, as you put it, to die down if there's the next time something like that will happen in the city is 5-6 years later, right?
Absolutely. And also, as we're keeping it continuous, and we're making it a community.
Right.
So all those people from Goris are coming to Yeknadzor.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And then they'll like the 50% will come to the next conference.
Right.
And then one of the success metrics that we see is these newly formed groups in the conferences. So we had a couple of success cases where like a group got acquainted with each other in Goris, like they didn't know each other, and they form a small startups, and they won the prize in Yeknadzor, which we're organizing this small grant for startups there, and then they won it. And
that's fantastic.
So that's really cool to learn.
Has the city been decided already for 2023?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
But that's definitely be like outside city of regional city,
right?
Not Yerevan.
Of course, in the regions, Okay, Narek, our last question. What do you hope for the future of PreLaunch in the next coming 5 to 10 years? Where do you hope to see the company be?
So we hope to bring a new culture, a new behavior in consumer hardware and in many other industries which are suffering from this late meeting to their communities and customers. We want to create a culture of co-creation. We want to kind of flip it around the current ways on how the e-commerce is operating. So and we think that's beneficial for everybody. You need to go out, meet your customers as soon as possible, and evaluate your metrics, and from there on decide whether you should continue or not. And then on a community side, it's also interesting. Like as a consumer, as a community, you can just see your favorite brands, see what they're working on, join them in their products, and give them a very credible signal, so they understand whether they should do black color or white color. That will help everybody become more successful and
save them a lot of time.
Yes.
Narek, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you'll come back and share with us what's going on with PreLaunch in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you.